Hey guys, welcome back to Rave Culture Cast, your weekly guide to the EDM community, music festivals, and more. I'm your host, Emma Capotis. Thank you guys so much for tuning into another episode. Today, we've got an incredible conversation with Michael Berg. He is a festival founder and organizer, talent buyer, overall music fan who is behind the scenes of events like North Coast, Suwanee Hulaween, and Sacred Rose Festival, amongst many more. Today, we've got an incredible conversation with him as we gear up for Hulaween happening next weekend. So we're going to dive into that in just a second. But first, I want to share a word from one of our sponsors. All right, fam, the first ever Slumberland Festival is going down this November 10th through the 14th at the Avanti Palms in Orlando, Florida. Some of you might know that Rave Culture Cast is actually a co-sponsor of the event this year, and we are super excited to be bringing you so many different things like pool parties and after parties with an incredible house and techno lineup with some amazing bass acts in there as well. We've also got daily activities, immersive art experiences, all kinds of cool stuff going on. So I'm actually doing a ticket giveaway. So you guys can enter to win a room package, which is a 2 double queen room with 2 weekend passes to the festival. So again, that is a double queen room. So you got 2 beds and 2 weekend passes to participate in all of Slumberland's activities. All you have to do is head to the post linked down below on my Instagram page and tag some friends in the comments. And that is ending this Friday, October 21st. On top of that, we're also going to have a dedicated floor in the tower room between the Rave Culture Cast community and the Lunchbox fam. So if you guys use my code EMMAK at checkout, you will save $10 off every item in your cart, and you will get access to our dedicated floor. So again, that is code EMMAK to save money. Come hang out with us at Slumberland this November, guys. It's going to be amazing. And then we'll all head over to EDC Orlando and enjoy the festival. So hope to see you guys there. With all that being said, let's get back into the episode. All right, guys, I'm super excited to roll right into this interview with Michael Berg. Like I mentioned, he has been involved in the music scene and the festival industry for many years. He has his hands in a lot of different events. He is the founder of Suwanee Hulaween, North Coast Festival, Sacred Rose Festival, and he also does talent buying for Collectiv Presents, which does all types of events in the Chicago area, Atlanta as well. He is an avid music fan, so we get to dive into a lot of conversations about music and what we like to listen to, as well as talking all about the incredible community behind Hulaween and what it's like to have jam bands mixed with electronic music and what kind of audience that attracts. So it was a super interesting conversation. Absolutely love talking to festival organizers. It's one of my favorite things to cover on this podcast. So if any of you guys are planning to go to Hulaween next week or plan to go in the future, I think you will really enjoy this. So please join me in welcoming Michael Berg to the podcast. To get started, you guys, I have Michael Berg here, who I'm excited to welcome to the podcast. For those of you who don't know, he is the man behind a lot of events like North Coast, Hulaween, Sacred Rose Festival, as well as a talent buyer of Collectiv Presents. Extremely passionate about music, so I know a lot of us can relate to that, and a very busy man right now with Hulaween happening next weekend. So thank you for taking the time out to be on the podcast today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Of course. First off, I just want to say congratulations on the event happening next weekend, and also North Coast, I know, is a huge success this year. So how did everything go? And I know we're nearing the end of the year, but any highlights from the year so far?
I mean, just to even be working and active and having some wins here and there is like pretty much the highlight of the year at this point. It's an incredibly volatile situation out in the concert and festival industry right now. So I'm just grateful that I have a job, that we're working, that some things seem to be working in general, and that, the energy and the time and care that we've put into the communities that are like being fostered around each one of these events has somehow paid some sort of dividends, that we have things like Hulaween selling out in advance, or like a record sales year for North Coast. It's very blessed. I feel incredibly grateful.
Awesome. No, that's great to hear. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people can feel the same sentiments where we're, still in this pandemic, but very, very happy to have these events. And I feel like everything is very community based right now. That seems to be the driving force behind a lot of things. And I know the events that you work on have like really strong fan bases. So it's cool to see the development and the growth everywhere. But because we are a week before Hulaween, I was curious, like, what does your week look like right now? Like, what are the days leading up to the festival? Like, how are you spending your time?
There's a lot of like buttoning up last minute loose ends, things like that, guest list requests, different things that artists are asking for that were maybe in the deal or not in the deal, and just communication points. I tend to be kind of like a mediator or a liaison between a lot of teams, departments, organizations, and whatnot. So really like the majority of my workload leading into a week like this is a communications thing. And just being available, being communicative, helping connect the dots, problem solving.
Yeah, I bet. And you said you're leaving this week, right? So you're already heading over there.
2 days.
Amazing. And you're based out of Chicago too, correct?
Yeah, I'm here in Chicago right now, and I'll be going down there on Thursday and then spending about 2 weeks there.
That's so cool to hear. Oh, I'm excited for everybody. It looks like such an incredible event. And we're going to dive into that more, you guys, but I want to go back a little bit and chat a little bit about your origin story just to hear how you got here. And I was just looking up some information on you, and I saw that you had a really strong relationship with your grandfather, Bert Rose, and you have a parent, your mother, who is a music teacher. So I was just curious if those influences before you knew it led to a career in the music industry.
Well, I most certainly was born into music in one way, shape, or form. But the funny part about it is that what I do now has very little to do with anything that anyone in my family did. Like you said, like my mom was a music teacher, and my grandfather was a professional pianist, who he played private events and like parties and things like that. It was kind of more like what he did, but he did teach me music at an early age. And I have some vivid memories of him teaching me some stuff about like how to count on the 2 and 4 on like a 4/4 beat, and like,
Nice.
just like little tricks and things that he taught me when I was really young that like at the time I didn't really think anything about, but now I realize how much they resonated with me and like made me like learn how to grasp onto rhythms, and like, which would essentially like for something with dance music, like turn into BPMs and, you know, like think those kind of things down the line. And in high school, I had a ton of friends that were in bands and played instruments and whatnot. And coming up towards the end of high school, I decided that I wanted to not be where I was from anymore. Like most high school, early college kids, they want to like break free and get out of their home base and, you know, spread their wings a little bit. So I ended up going out to Colorado, taking a little bit of time off of doing music artistically in any way. I never had really done it professionally at that point. It had always been just for the fun and the music of it. I had bands and whatnot, and wrote songs when I was in high school. And I always still kept like an acoustic guitar and things with me to like kind of like have a connection to it, but was never really like trying to be a band or like go out and do that kind of thing, or like represent artists or in any way, shape, or form, like either as a promoter or a manager or an agent or a label, along those lines. But when I came home from Colorado, which was quite a long time ago now, about over 22 years, June of 2000, some of my friends who had been in a band that I was friends with in high school were like, "Oh, you just got home. It would be awesome if you could, you know, make your coming home like hang or coming home party like at our show." And so I was like, yeah, no problem. Like, so all my friends that hadn't seen me for a while because I had been living in Colorado, everybody wanted to hang. So I was like, oh, this is like a place for us to all congregate and meet and whatever. So after the show, the band came up to me and they were like, dude, you just got so many people to come to our show. This was like our best crowd we had in forever. Like, holy cow, you're so good at this. And it went from that in a very short order to me setting up their shows for them, eventually managing them, and then inevitably, and like again in short order from there, just setting up our own shows and branching out to other genres. And you know, I've always been a diverse music fan myself, so it's like we've always had a pretty full spectrum of artists that we represent and kind of like fuck with and professional levels.
Cool. Yeah. So you got a taste of it early. And what was it like to work with friends starting out?
It's always good to work with friends as long as you're honest and you have good intentions. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you're working with friends and people start getting greedy. If you're working with friends and people,
Right.
don't have everyone's best interest in mind, then working with friends sucks and it can ruin
Mm-hmm.
friendships. But we've always subscribed, my whole like collective network, no pun intended on collective, but like my whole
Mm-hmm.
extended network, I should say,
Yep.
that like if we're all winning together, then we're all winning. And
Mm-hmm.
so, you know,
Yeah.
that's kind of where it's at with working with friends. It's like if
Yeah.
everybody wins, then it works. It's like if
Right.
one person's winning and somebody else isn't, it's got a short shelf life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, because I can imagine like even transitioning from that, like during that time, what did you take away from that role and how did that lead sort of into the next step? Like, were you interested in the dance music industry at all, or were you kind of like open to exploring, any sort of role in that industry?
I mean, prior to even really leaving for Colorado, like I went to drum and bass raves in the
Mm-hmm.
90s.
Nice.
I
Yeah.
was always, yeah, I was always into the culture. I remember the first one that I ever went to was called Free the Robots.
Nice. Yeah.
I'll never forget the flyer. They used to like have these cool cutout flyers, and
Yeah.
I went downtown from where I was living in the burbs at the time and went to it. And it was like a really cool cultural experience to kind of take in what like underground Chicago dance music culture was like, but it really wasn't like the traditional, house and techno style, like
Right.
Chicago underground culture at that time. It was like really like a drum and bass thing, which
Mm-hmm.
inevitably is funny, like leading into like the bass acts that we work with now and like the roots that music had on,
Mm-hmm.
what's happening now with a lot of these like
Sure.
subgenres underneath the umbrella.
Right.
Um, but I forgot what
No,
yeah,
no, no, that's good.
yeah,
Just how
but like
your
yeah,
role evolved essentially. So you had a
yeah,
little taste of everything, which is cool.
right. And then after I started producing shows in the earlier days, like in the early 2000s, my first foray, I
Yeah.
forget,
You
into
good?
working with dance music definitely and admittedly came from the electronic side of jam bands.
Hmm.
And it certainly evolved from there, just like the community and the culture did. Um, so there was bands like Sound Tribe Sector 9, the Disco Biscuits, stuff
Hmm.
like that. And at the time, while they're not DJs and they're certainly not like dance music, it
Hmm.
was certainly electronic leaning music,
Right.
especially for the genres that I was kind of associated with and like the culture that I had kind of come from at that point in my story arc.
Hmm.
Um, and from there, things started to evolve, where, DJs started to filter their way into opening for some of those acts. And then
Hmm.
acts that were sort of hybrid, like say, like a Big Gigantic that
Hmm.
like had the live elements with like the sax and the drums, but like we're still making like, bassy leaning, like funky electronic beats,
Hmm.
like things like that. Like, and as their like early days and like that genre kind of evolved, it
Yeah.
really seemed to, the electronic side of things really seemed to open up. And now there's blurred lines, like where you
Hmm.
take an act like Rufus or an act like Odessa when they're playing
Yeah.
live, and like, is that a DJ or is that a band? Like,
Right.
you tell me. It doesn't, it's like one way or the other. It's still dance music. It's still electronic.
Hmm.
And, but like the reach has gone so much farther in that time frame. Like, there's, I see people from all walks of life really kind
Hmm.
of like digging that kind of music now. And I see how it resonates.
Yep.
Um, there's a girl on our team. Her name is Bailey. She's awesome.
Hmm.
She came to in April. We were seeing Fish in MSG in New
Nice.
York,
Yeah.
and she like very much comes from the electronic world, and like just like as a fan and whatnot.
Hmm.
And she came there and like watching her eyes open to like what that culture was and what that experience was, and like
Hmm.
watching her have this epiphany about the parallels between the two
Hmm.
was like really special for me. And like I'm cheesy, so it's like of
Yeah.
course it does make me like got me like a little emo about it, but
Yeah.
it was just really cool to like kind of watch and see somebody that had like no pre-existing connotations or like inhibitions
Hmm.
about what they were experiencing, went into it with an open mind and like were connecting the dots in real time and communicating with me while it was happening.
Right.
And it was just really special. And it really reiterated to me how many parallels there are between, subcultures and whatnot, which is exactly why something like Hulu works, because that is what ties in the two. I mean, those are clearly the two biggest elements of that show.
So it was planting the seed. So was that like the first planting of the seeds of that sort of idea to kind of like merge genres, or was that sort of just proof that it's totally possible and it'll work?
It was more like proof. I mean, this is like, if we wouldn't have had the pandemic shutdown of 2020, we would be having our 10-year anniversary of Hula this year.
Wow.
Technically the 9th, but I mean, and this was in April of this year. So it's like the story I was just saying about Bailey and fish. So it's like, this is like a decade removed from when something like this started. And what we've always done, and you said something about this at the beginning of our chat, which I appreciate. It's like, I am a music fan and all of my partners are as well. And so it's like, we try to service communities and cultures that we are part of and that we understand. Sure. I don't try and go into, I don't throw heavy metal shows because I don't know heavy metal. I don't know that world, but like, I don't throw like country shows because that's not really, my
your
world.
Jam.
Like, it's not my jam. I just like, I don't know it. And so I'm not like a phony. I'm not going to try and step into a world that I don't know just to do that. And so it's like, when you look back to like the foundation and roots of something like, Suwanee Hulaween, or even what North Coast was at first before it went all dance. It was like a diverse show that was based on the music that we liked and like the worlds that we were working in and the cultures that we were part of.
Wow. And to take that step, because at that time with the events that you started with, what was the scale of those? Like, was that hundreds of people, thousands of people prior to some of the festivals that you were organizing?
For which ones? I'm sorry, I'm not following later.
Some of like the first events when you were kind of like throwing events with like your friends band and things like that. Like how many people?
Those were tiny.
Small scale.
200, 500, like a 500 cap show was like a pretty big show at that point. And then we would do like a couple a year that were like in like 1,000 cap venue.
Yeah.
And it would be like our big deal shows at that point.
That's crazy. So how does one take a step just for like, I know a lot of the fans who are interested, or they always ask for like tips and advice on how to get into the industry, but just going very back to the beginning, and we can use Hulaween as an example. How do you take that step to create an event and decide to, like location, line up everything? Like, how do you decide to like make that plunge?
So, I mean, there's a plethora of factors that go into that. It's like a pretty long-winded answer I could give, but for Suwanee Hulaween specifically, there was a funk festival there called Bear Creek that ran for several years. And even towards the end of that, they started to introduce a little bit of electronic music like Big G, Pretty Lights, Bonobo. Like there was a couple of things that got sprinkled in there, but for the most part, it was like a funk festival. And our partner, Paul Levine, he was the talent buyer of that one. And he booked my old band to play at the festival. Nice. And so my first time walking into Suwannee, I had just gone, it was in 2009. And a couple of months earlier, I had gone to the first Rothbury, which is now Electric Forest, obviously.
Nice.
And I walked in to the site and I was looking around and I was like, wow, this place could be something like that. And like just the way, I mean, it's an 800-acre incredible property that people seem to have this insane affinity for. One of my friends, Joe, says that like the first time he stepped onto those grounds, he felt like ancient American Indian spirits, like which I don't know if it's real or not, but he felt just what he felt. Feeling. Yeah, he felt like a real like spiritual presence there, which makes sense considering St. Augustine was the first.
Wow.
Yeah, since St. Augustine's like an hour away, and that was like one of the first places discovered here, like by the Europeans. So it would make sense that people would move farther west, which is about 90 miles west of there.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just it makes sense, but like there seriously is something special there. And so we walked in, and then a couple of years later, Paul and I were on a music festival trip together. I was actually on a boat, Jam Cruise, and we were talking about how we wanted to I told him how I had always wanted to throw a show there ever since I had stepped foot on the grounds. And about a month or two later, he gave us a ring and he was like, "Hey, I booked String Cheese Incident. I don't really have a team. I know you have a team. Like, want to come be part of this?" And that was in 2013.
Rest
And
is history. Yeah.
it's been an up and down history, but we're still standing.
I love that it was inspired by a location. And I have to tell you, when I've done a couple posts recently, just asking, I regularly check in with the community and get their feedback. And I asked, like, what are the most underrated festivals? And I had so many people tag Hulaween, but it's almost like they're protective of it too, because they're like, this is our community and home, and we don't want this secret to get out because we cherish it so much. But there was just an astounding amount of people, and I'm curious what you accredit that to, because I think I experienced Electric Forest this year, and I'm usually not into like the jam band scene, but I got that feeling of community. And I remember asking somebody, like, the dance music crowd is very friendly and welcoming. Like, that's nothing new, but this feels like a different energy. And somebody said to me, that's because jam bands are here and that's the crowd that attracts. And so it's like even more friendly and welcoming. But I'm just curious what you would attribute it to.
Yeah, they don't have in the jam band world, they don't really refer to it like a phrase like plur.
Right. Right.
But it's the same primary tenets of like a plur lifestyle or like plur culture, where like, it absolutely and genuinely roots back to the 60s, hippie generation and like that point of the music history. When it was like all about peace and love and family and respect and it's a lot of similar primary tenets between the two is again what I keep coming back to, because it's real.
Do you notice any differences too? Because even just mentioning North Coast as well, switching more towards electronic music for the most part, do you notice any similarities or differences in events that are more multi-genre versus like strictly dance music?
I think that every event has its own identity and every event has its own, community that's circling around it or permeating around it. But there's of course similarities across all of these. The way that, maybe somebody goes to a festival year one or year two and they meet their lover, partner, girlfriend, person, whatever, human that you want to say. And then, like, they have that connection and then they want to go every year. Or maybe somebody goes and makes a best friend there, and then that becomes the annual thing that they want to do. And then like they go every year together and they start meeting other people, and then it flowers from there. And there's like so many incidents and examples of things like that, where like it's the test of time, and the longer that, the longer that it goes on, the deeper the roots run.
Right. Yeah, I love seeing like the communities form. I agree with you. They each kind of have their own identity. But I want to chat a little bit about the lineup too, because I know as a music fan, I'm sure it's an exciting part picking like who is going to be a part of Hulaween every year. And I think Femme House is doing a stage takeover this year, correct?
Absolutely.
I think so. I was super excited to see that.
Me too.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the lineup?
Of course. It was curated very much in conjunction with LP, if you will. She came and played the festival last year and left the festival, went to Outside Lands, which for last year, because of the pandemic and the bounce back, happened the same weekend as us. And she raved about how Hulaween was her new favorite festival after she had been there, and how she had the best time, and the art was insane and blew her mind, and the people were so welcoming. And like, she's someone very much like myself that comes from both worlds, that like has that jam band identity, but also relates to
Deadhead.
Also has that like dance music world, like culture identity as well, and relationships and things like that. So she really like truly understood the connection between all of it. Like I was talking about earlier, like how there are these like similarities. Right. So she recognized that right away. I met Leah years ago because her boyfriend, who's still her dude, is an old promoter that does just what I do. And he did a couple of festivals, and I was out visiting some people in LA, and I went and visited them, and I met her then, hadn't spoken in years. She played a very early on North Coast, and we like had a couple of texts that went back and forth. But after last year's hula, our friendship really evolved, and I was like, for how much this festival seemed to mean to you, and for how similar we are in our dual identity within this world we call the music business, I was like, we have to bring Femhouse back and do, we have to do awesome. We have to do a take. And there's very few acts that we do on a year-to-year basis, like back to back, because most festivals, people want to see something different every year. And so there's a few acts that we have every year, but for the most part, we try and keep it mixed up. But like, this is definitely something that we want to do. So LP and I worked in conjunction to kind of like build out a very unique Femhouse run of show. Had a couple of hiccups along the way, like everything like right now in this post-COVID / still COVID world that we're living in. It's a lot of cancellations, a lot of challenges, and something interesting. We always make a very concerted effort to try and book more women on all of our shows, specifically Sacred Rose and on Hulaween. We've like really put a solid effort in for it. That's awesome. And so it was like incredible for me to be able to work on a Femhouse thing, because I was like, wow, this is like something that we're already allies to women in the music business, but then on top of it, to be able to like actually create an opportunity for like a full day run of show, all women top to bottom, it was really cool. And it was something I was excited about. What you'd be interested to know, and I don't want to name drop people because that's inappropriate, but there was a handful of like really cool artists that we heavily fuck with and love their music, had no interest in being part of it, not because they don't like LP, not because they don't like Femhouse, but because they don't want to be known as like a woman artist. Like they really want to be known as their own individual entity. I totally respect and understand, and in all honesty is pretty righteous, because like in the name of true equality, like that is what it should be. Like it shouldn't be like, oh, you're getting this slot, or you're getting considered for this because you're a woman or you're not, or non-binary or whatever. But like it's part of our allyship is like believing in true equality. And I like really actually believe that it was righteous of some people to not be interested in wanting to do it for that very reason. But then it also made it challenging, because a couple of our target artists that we wanted, master weren't available. That being said, we ended up feeling really good about the way that it turned out. And like, we have some amazing people that are going to be performing, and a couple of up and comers that seem to have like some real juice and buzz behind them. And a couple of like veteran, status people. And it's great.
It's a great mix.
So thanks. Is gonna close the stage this year. And on the come up, Kalina Zanders, who's awesome.
She's boss. Yeah, love her.
Such a sweetheart. She got super involved in like promoting, and like for me as a promoter, it's like when you book someone, especially someone that's like at that up and comer tier, like you can see very quickly who has the drive and who's got it and who wants it and is going to go out there and go take what's theirs and go get it. And I got that vibe from her, and I actually haven't met her yet. I'm really excited to.
She's so cool.
Yeah, I like the music, and she seems like a really, really rad chick. So
I feel like anybody that floats in that circle, we're big fans of LP here, but the energy just like vibrates off of certain people. Those two women are for sure in that category. But does anything else stand out to you? Because you're looking at so many artists and you're booking people regularly. So for more like up and coming people, is there something that you particularly look for? Are you looking at feedback from the community every year? Or is it like if you meet them in person and, you really fuck with them as a person, like what kind of stands out to you?
Oh man, there's so many different ways to apply that. Because of the position that I'm in with my career, I'm incredibly fortunate that the network of agents and managers that I consider my circle, they're constantly out there picking up new bands, picking up new DJs, picking up new rappers, picking up new artists.
Right.
And because of my existing relationships, whether they're 1 year long with them or 2 decades long or something that falls in between, And because of the opportunities that I could provide through the platforms that I've created with these festivals that we do, they always bring them to me. And so like I get like a really good, like, you know, some people like go to the well, if you will, with like Spotify or SoundCloud or Apple Music or whatever platform they choose to stream or explore for music, YouTube, whatever, like explore music on word of mouth. But I get to do that, but I also get to, you know, have things brought to me. And I get a lot of the backstory sometimes, which you don't get when you just hear a song on a platform.
Right.
You know, and I'll get to that in a second because there is another way that I like to discover acts. But like, you know, when an agent that you work with, who I work with some of the best in the world, and it's like the reason that I am who I am is because of this network of people. They'll come to me and they'll say, you know, this is what's happening. And like, there's real buzz around this. And like, here's the social counts and here's the shows that they're, you know, here's the shows that they're on. Here's the other festivals that are picking them up. Here's who's managing. Here's what they're doing different than anyone else. Things like that. And like, so like, I get like a different form of pitched on these things that like really give me like, and I listen to all of them with an open mind because I trust these people. And like, you know, so it's like, I get to like go into it with like a little bit more of like a broad education on something for experiencing it for the first some, as opposed to like I was saying a second ago, just like finding it online or finding it through something or whatever. So then that being said, the other way that I find new artists is we all have the tendency to like have like our favorite song of the week or our favorite song of the month. I mean, like I'm a music fan. So it's like when I fall in love with a song, I have absolutely unabashedly no shame to say that I'll listen to it 500 times, like over and over again, like on repeat. And so a lot of times when I do that and I have a new song that I'm loving, I use Spotify a lot. But I'll go on Spotify and I'll start a radio station off of a song that I'm obsessed with. And I'll just leave it on in the background while I'm working. And I'm like a very melody, like hook driven, like music fan. And so like, I'll just like and I'm beyond ADD. So I'll be working, typing away. I'm on a phone call and it's just like music's going in the background. And then I'll catch something like out of the peripheral. Like I'll hear it. Like, and I'll go and I'll look it up. And then once in a while I go and look it up and I see who their agent is or their manager, like who represents them or where they're from or what else, all the other same things, like who else they're playing with, who else they have collab tracks with, like things like that. And then like sometimes I'm like, oh my God, it's XYZ is your agent. That's my buddy. And I'll call them right away. Sometimes it's people that I don't know at all. And I'll reach out to them. And then that's what ends up starting the relationship between us and some of these people. But those are really the ways that I discover acts to put onto our shows.
Cool. It's like, it's a multi-layered system, but thank you for explaining that. This is like fascinating, but it's a level of like trust with your team who like helps curate people and brings them to you. And I totally feel you on the story in the background, because even with picking guests for the podcast, same thing. Like I will really look into people and see like, what are they doing that's interesting or cool. And then I'm with you on the Spotify. I haven't done the radio based off a song, so I will have to start doing that. But I do a lot of the, who are they similar to? Who does Spotify recommend they sound like?
Do the similar artists as well. That's like a really good research point or data point. But you'd be surprised when you launch the radio station off of a song or off of an artist or whatever. If you do it off of the artist, you'll get a lot more songs by that artist. But if you do it off of the song, it'll like expand a little bit. Like you'll be flipping through it and like, you know what, maybe one of the songs kind of sucks or you don't like it. It just like you don't vibe with it. And you know what you do? Click right to the next one. And then like, maybe you just leave it rolling in the background and then one of them stands out for whatever reason. And I've discovered, you know, whole new genres and whole new, like, you know, directions of my music fandom from this happening before.
Is there a certain type of music other than that helps you focus? Because I too either need to time block or find that I work in spurts and I have too many tabs open on my computer. But is there anything you like to listen to that gets you in the zone?
It totally depends on what I'm working on. Like if I'm like getting ready to go out to a show that we were throwing that night, or I'm like driving in the morning of a festival to the site, or there's like different music that I'll listen to hype me up or get me in the mood. And then, if I'm working, sometimes I actually just need it to be quiet because I'm so ADD and I can't have music on, or I'll just like, I've had music on.
Too much.
If there's lyrics, I'll be like typing an email, and like all of a sudden I'll like type the words of the song into the
Oh
email. I'm
shit.
like,
Yeah.
can we go back? Hold on a second.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
there's
feel that. It's so weird. It's interesting because music starts to become linked to certain things. Because for some reason, when I would always be in work mode, I put on so many Lane 8 sets and mixtapes that like now when I see him in concert and I hear certain songs, it like doesn't make me emotional, but it like literally makes me think of like that project I was working really, really hard on that I finally accomplished. And I just needed something soothing in the background while I
Lane
worked on
played
it.
at Hula last year, actually.
He's amazing. Yeah, he's incredible. But um I just wanted to kind of like wrap up a little bit with Hulaween just to get people excited who are listening who might be going for the first time next weekend or maybe some veterans who are coming back. But do you have any favorite interactions with people in the crowd or favorite memories of, any years past just from people that you've interacted with?
Oh man, I don't know if I could call out like a specific person or interaction,
Mm-hmm.
but outside of the obvious wins and losses of what I do,
Mm-hmm.
uh, the most like uh, rewarding thing that I could ever see in my entire career is a packed crowd of people sending it. If they're
Yeah.
dancing, they might not even be like raging, it's like it could be like a heavy like dubstep show where everybody's doing the rail and they're going.
Mm,
It could be like a jam band show where everybody's tweedly deedly twirling around. It could be,
yeah.
something a little bit more like Americana folk singer songwriter indie leaning where they're not dancing, but you could tell that they're completely engaged. That
Mm-hmm.
that like level of human interaction, that level of intimacy between the artists and like knowing that I played any sort of role in it, like that's what's the most special to me. I remember a show we did in Chicago years ago, and I was in a balcony that was closed, and it was like the crowd was only on the floor, and I was up in the balcony, kind of like looking over the crowd,
Mm-hmm.
and the crowd was going absolutely berserk. And it reminded me, I had just gone to Europe, I had just gone to Amsterdam with some friends, and I went to a club
Nice.
there, and it reminded me of like a Euro dance club. And like I just felt the energy of them, like I felt it, like the pulse of it. And it
Sure.
was like this, I had this epiphany moment of like, God, this is what I'm born to do, is like be part of this culture, be part of these kind of moments. And it's
Mm-hmm.
really inspiring and motivating to like want to try and create those more,
Sure.
And so it's like, that's why in a situation in a time where shows are struggling,
Mm-hmm.
festivals are, going under and having to sell or
Yeah.
canceling and going to the festy graveyard or
Mm-hmm.
canceled for one reason or another, like all the different things that the internet plays a role in in,
Mm-hmm.
in the world, and the economy plays a role in. It just makes it that much more special for something like Hulaween to be sold out in advance, and just know that like the community is
Yeah.
that strong, that there's enough people that are going to commit that far ahead of time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I throw shows in Chicago, I can't walk through a show in Chicago, whether I'm working or just
Mm-hmm.
there as a fan, without like a Berg, hi, and
Yeah.
like, and it's not like random people. It's like friends. It's like people that I've been going to concerts with for years. So it's not like
Yeah.
it's just that I'm actually of the culture that I'm servicing.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to Hulaween, I'm like one step removed because I'm only down there when I'm, doing Hulaween. My
Right.
partner, Paul, who I spoke about earlier, he's that guy down there. He knows everybody and everybody knows him. And
Mm-hmm.
we have this rabid fan base Facebook group.
Yeah.
Hulaween. I don't know if
Yeah.
you're familiar with it. It's insane.
Yeah.
They're
It's
crazy.
always
They're
the
crazy.
Facebook
Yeah,
groups.
they're crazy in there. I love
Yeah.
them. We love them, but they're nuts in there.
That's so
Um,
funny.
exactly. And like, I mean, this guy Paul, he gets called out all the time.
Yeah.
They tag him in, and it's like I feel like with Hulaween, I get like this one level removed of flying just under the radar, where like I
Yeah.
kind of get to coast just under the radar as like, and just kind of be a fly on the wall. But as as the time has gone on, and now that it's
Mm-hmm.
approaching like a decade deep, 10-year anniversary,
Yeah. It's
I
amazing.
obviously know more and more people down there. And it's just the last one I'll say
Mm-hmm.
is we have a crazy art installation area there called Spirit Lake. Um,
I've heard the stories. Yeah.
it's very similar and admittedly inspired by electric forest Burning Man hybrid, and with our own, twist on it, obviously. But you made me realize, it just came to me while we were saying this, that the most special thing that I've seen at Hulaween and with the fans there isn't necessarily an interaction, but just something that I've overheard. And like I've walked around quietly, whether with a group of people or by myself, just observing and listening to people's verbal reactions to some of the art installations and the way that they're so interactive, whether it's, site mapping. So like things are moving on the ground or on trees or on buildings that we build, or this like church thing that we have there called the House of Lost, or there's a 30 by 30 foot water screen that goes over the lake itself, and the lake is an actual centerpiece of the whole thing, and we project content onto it, but only at night. So because it's at night and it's glowing, it looks holographic. So people stand there and they watch the projections that are, like I said, kind of holographic, like over the lake. And over the years, the content has changed. And like, there's things where like a skull will come up from underneath the water and turn around and wave at you, or like tell you to like come closer.
That's so sick.
Don't do it. If it tells you to do it. And then this guy, Andy, who, was like the main art director for several years of Spirit Lake. He thought of an idea a couple of years ago where people would stand around and like watch the projections over the lake. So for the last several years, we've introduced seating, so people can just sit there and like actually just enjoy the show. And then not only have we continued to evolve the seating, and now we've like added different layered ones for this year that are about to be introduced that people will find in a week or so, or whenever this airs. But we have speakers up in the trees pointing down at the seated area.
Nice.
So there's an audio element that goes in conjunction with the, with the projections. So some of them look somewhat like mechanic, and you'll hear these like mechanical, like gear grinding noises. And then like when something like the skeleton, or like there's like one that has like a swimmer that like kind of swims at you, like you'll hear like the water splashing like as he's swimming. And like, so
that's
it really
awesome.
like, it really adds like an audio visual, like overload, like stimulant element, it's
that's
really
so
special.
Cool.
But like listening to people's reaction to it is incredibly special. Like you hear like the like, oh, like you hear like the noises, and like sometimes it's like several people doing the same thing at the same time. And we're just
they all notice.
We're just like, yes, this is working. Like, this is great.
That's like Inception. It's like they're enjoying the show, and then you're enjoying watching them enjoy the show. That's why that's why I'm a big music festival fan. But as I've gotten older, have leaned more towards experiential festivals that have the elements of the art installations, because I think it just adds something so much more to the experience. And I think people enjoy having options. Like you can go enjoy the sets if you want to, but you can also go hang out and relax, or go grab food, or enjoy something from the back of the crowd. So that's such a fun job too, to be able to work on the art installations. Like what a cool job to have.
Yeah, I mean, gone are the days of just putting up a stage in a field and calling it like, this is a festival.
No.
It's not like that anymore. Like you need to give people another reason why they want to be there. And then if you can tap into that reason and you find something that works, you need to evolve it and grow it and make it bigger and better every year. Because there's beyond oversaturation in the festival market, and the combination of that mixed with the economic strife that this whole country is going through right now, which is severe and real. People need to pick and choose their battles. Like they need to decide, like some people only go to Hulaween, like that's the one festival they go to all year. They only go to Bonnaroo or Coachella or whatever it is, because they're expensive, and it's an expensive weekend. It's not just the ticket that's expensive, it's the merch and like any extracurricular
food and alcohol or whatever.
Food and alcohol. Exactly. Like all of it. And so, you can't just expect that music is just enough. And even though music and the names of the artists performing are really the thing that draw attention to each one of these events and are absolutely, essential to them existing, adding these other elements and then like evolving them, effectively is really like the new formula. It's really the way to do it.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing all that. I think that's one of the reasons I do this, is that so people can see kind of like behind the scenes of what actually goes into everything. And I think fans are so much smarter now, and especially with social media and even just word of mouth, like people are going to hear about the experiences that stepped it up. And it's a testament when people come back year and year, like, you're growing a family there. So it's cool to see it evolve, and I'm excited for anybody who gets to go next weekend. And I'll definitely include a bunch of clips in here as well, so people can see all the things that you're describing. But before I let you go, I am going to be introducing this question to all of my guests moving forward, because mental health is something that's really important to me. But I wanted to know how you prioritize self-care and taking care of your mental health with everything else that you've got going on in your life.
I'm really glad you asked that. It's an incredibly important topic to myself as well. I don't know if any of your listeners or followers or viewers, whatever you would refer to it on whatever platform they're checking this out, know about it, but there's an organization called Backline. That's like an industry run mental health organization that's for people in the music business. Who they have a network of specialists and providers that actually understand the culture, understand the struggles of like what touring musicians do, what, the problems and things that we're all kind of, dealing with on a day-to-day basis. But for me personally, and I truly have only adopted this in the last 6 months of my life. And it's something that I've like been working towards for a really long time, but you have to set boundaries. And if you don't set them for yourself, nobody's going to set them or follow them for you. So, when you're in the music business, when you're in the arts world, you don't want to say no to things. You don't want to say no to opportunities. You don't want to, there's such a steep hill to climb to get into an area where people come to you asking for your help instead of you begging to be involved in things. So it's like, in 20 years ago, it's me chasing agents, asking them like, please let me be involved. Let me be the promoter. Like I care enough. I care more than whoever else was doing it to like be the person that should be, your representative. Like I'm the one that should be like rallying the people for your people in this market or for this, this concert or whatnot. And then like you climb this like incredibly steep hill. And then at some point, even though there's peaks and valleys and it, that same, it grows exponentially, like in the same way, it gets to a point where now people start coming to you and you have a festival and they're like, oh, I want my up and coming band on your festival. Or I want, just that's just a very personal example.
Sure.
But even if you look at it for like a DJ or a band who's out there touring and like they're trying to get opening slots, they're trying to get gigs at their local venue, and then all of a sudden they get a little steam or they have like a sick collab track with somebody, or like for some reason they start to like get into the public spotlight and they start more opportunities start coming their way. Like new producers say like, hey, I want you to collab on this track with me, or I want you to remix this track for me, or I want you to be a guest on our show, or just like things like that. And so it's like you get to this point where you feel like you chased it and now all of a sudden opportunities are coming to you. And so you want to say yes to everything because you're like, this is what I worked for, was to like have these opportunities. And like, the community and culture that's around the fans, there's a community and culture around the artists, and there's a community and culture around the promoters and agents and managers and venues and whatnot. And it's like, it's sad, but true. Like it's a bit of a social club in a lot of ways. And like, there's, it is what it is. I'm going off on a tangent, but my point is that like, when you get to a certain point at whatever level you're at, if you don't create boundaries for yourself, nobody else is going to follow them for you. And if you take on too much, everything suffers. And I've learned the hard way more than once that like, if you say yes to everything and you take on too many things, even if they're great opportunities, like cool projects, people you'd want to like fuck with or do things with. If you take on too much, then everything else you're part of starts to suffer. So it's like, if you don't set boundaries for yourself, whether that's like, okay, like I can only do 2 festivals this year, or I can only outside of my own record that I'm going to produce or make or write, I can only do 2 collab tracks or whatever it is, like in that regard. If you don't set those boundaries, then, or like even take somebody that doesn't take a fan that has any XYZ job, right?
Yep.
And they have a social life and they need to find that balance between like, when do I stop working and when do I go out and send it with my friends? And like, you have to find that balance between all of those things, and like creating boundaries and honoring them is really the best way to manage your mental health and your emotional health. And to me, mental and emotional health are essentially the same thing. It's not the exact same thing, but you know, if you have like, God forbid, like a addiction or a chemical imbalance, it's like a little bit different. But for like a general person, mental and emotional health are the same. And so yeah, my answer, my long-winded answer, is that if you set boundaries and you honor them for yourself, then people will honor them for you, and you'll be able to find the work-life balance that everyone should be looking for. And you know, it's like work to live, live to work, that whole thing. Like, we're humans, we're not meant to just work. Like, and so it's like, you have to create time for your loved ones, for your significant other, for your family, for your friends, for yourself. A lot of people like to exercise or do yoga or Pilates or like, you know, just different, you know, different things like that. But whatever it is that gets you to the place that helps you like alleviate the pressure of day-to-day life, and finding that boundary of like, I need to cut off this at this time of day and then spend this much time doing this for myself. It might be watching TV or a movie. It might be scrolling social media on your phone, or it might be something more productive, like going to the gym or cooking or doing something. But like, whatever it is, you have to find what that is, create those boundaries, and then honor them. And then people will do the same thing for you.
Beautifully put. No, thank you for saying that. I think you hit home for me. So I'm sure you hit home for a lot of people. And I heard this on a podcast recently, and it was describing a lot of the culture right now for a lot of working professionals, but they were saying they called it like shark syndrome, where if you feel like if you stop swimming, you'll die. So you just have to like keep going, keep going, keep going. And you don't take breaks, and you're like afraid to like lose that momentum of what you're doing. So I'm sure even you working as a music fan, doing something you love, like that bleeds into your personal life and your weekends and things like that. So it's extremely important for you and a lot of people in this scene to be able to have that, you know, time off from work.
Yeah. And another element that ties into that about what you're saying is like, post-pandemic, whatever era we're in of it now, people work from home now, right? And so it's like, how do you find that cutoff time of being like, work is home, home is work? Like, I work from my living room or my kitchen or my, you know, third bedroom or second bedroom or whatever, you know, whatever it is. And like, you know, the lines have been blurred. And so it's like, it's up to you to define and clarify them so that you can say, okay, at 7 p.m. or whatever time it is, like, I'm going to cut this off, and the rest of my night is for me, for whatever I need or want to do. And there needs to be that, you know, responsibility at the same time for people that are like doing like a work from home situation, where it's like, hey, you're at home and you got to sleep in, but like, it's time to like get going and like do your thing and like work all day. And so it's like, it's all about setting boundaries and finding balance.
Perfect. Well, this was such a great note to end on. I'm super excited for everything that you have coming up, and like, best of luck next weekend. I cannot wait to see people's vlogs and videos and everything that they're posting. But I guess what's your handle? How can people connect with you and all of the events you're working on?
Awesome. Thank you. My personal Instagram and Twitter are at I am Van Ghost. It was my old band name, Van Ghost, and I just adopted it to be my personal, my personal handle. So it's just I am VANGHOST. And, you know, Hulaween FL is the Hulaween one. Collectiv Presents, no E in Collective, so just TIV in Collective. That has a bunch of our other stuff outside of, you know, these festivals, like all of our club and theater shows and stuff like that in Atlanta and in Chicago. You can find all those at, you know, at Collectiv Presents and at North Coast Fest. Pretty straightforward.
All the links. Yeah, I will link it all down below so you guys can connect along with the organization that you mentioned. It was Backline that you said?
Yeah, Backline.
Correct. Okay, great.
They're
I will link that too.
really cool organization. And then,
Awesome.
if anyone's listened to this or watched this and wants to reach out, I am Van Ghost. My DMs are always open. You never know who you're talking to or meeting. You never know who needs to hear. I try to respond to everybody, even if I do it in a slower fashion than they were hoping for. But,
Awesome.
we're all here, so let's do it.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time, Michael. This was super interesting conversation. If you could hang tight, everybody else, I will be back in a second with our Rave Culture Cast recap.
Thanks so much.
All right, fam, I really hope you enjoyed that interview with Michael Berg. It was amazing chatting with him today, and it got me super excited about attending Hulaween in the future. So I think it's absolutely incredible what they're building over there, and I love hearing about the mix of genres and the appreciation for all of the art that they have there. So it's really cool what he's doing, and I also really appreciated his note about mental health and having boundaries at the end because, like I said, that is something that hits home for me, so I hope that resonated with some of you guys listening. Before I let you go, let's dive into our Rave Culture Cast recap here, which is our recap of the news and things going on in the festival and dance music industry. So this week, the big thing right now is the 1001 track list top producers of the year. I usually like to look at this list a lot just because I don't know, I kind of like take this list a little bit more seriously than like the DJ Mag top 100. But the one thing I will say before I read the top 10 is, typically another issue with this is it's all white male DJs, which is what we see a lot of the times with these lists. And unfortunately, it is that all over again this year. So there's not very much diversity in this. However, I will mention something else that they're doing that I think is really cool. But number one DJ this year was David Guetta, or producer, excuse me, David Guetta. He's got his project Future Rave, which I'm a big fan of, with a lot of other things going on. Number two was Vintage Culture. Big Vintage Culture fan. 3 was Kreider. 4 was John Summit. No surprise there. He is like the hottest artist in dance music, probably in the house music space, but overall absolutely killed this year. 5 was Tiesto. 6 was James Hype. 7, Armin van Buuren. 8, Joel Corey. 9, Nicky Romero. And 10, Oliver Heldens. And you guys can see the rest of the list on their Instagram. But one thing that they are doing that I really appreciate is called Future of Dance 2022. So this is an initiative that they started that empowers women and artists of color, hyping up these producers who are underrepresented and shining a light on them. They are starting a charity raffle as well. They're launching the Future of Dance Fund, which is going to raise funds from the NFT sales of the top 101 producers. And Future of Dance digital trophies, and they're going to split this prize evenly amongst 12 deserving artists. So you can check that out on their site. This list was way more interesting to me and super exciting. There were a lot of artists on here that I love to listen to, and again, really diverse list. Some names I'll mention. There's a lot, but Ameme and Anna, love them. Blondish is on here. That was a big one. Charlotte DeWitt. Who else do we have? Julie and Asia. Saw them a couple times this year. They are fabulous. Hannah Wantz is a great house artist. Honey Love, we love her. Jay Wara, Jamie Jones, our girl Jeannie, representing some bass music on this list. We also have Korolova and Kyle Kinch, Leila Benitez. We had LPGOB is on this list, like really, really nice mix. I would highly recommend checking out this list and adding these people to your playlist. Nostalgics is here. So I'm a big fan of the Future of Dance list. That's a huge honor. So super exciting about that. Not too much else to report. We did get a teaser today about Project Glow Festival. So it looks like that will be coming back. Just wanted to note that because Project Glow Philly was canceled, but it looks like the one in DC will be coming back. No more information, just a teaser dropped today. And the last thing I wanted to mention is a little bit more of a serious topic, and this is something that just came on my radar today as I'm recording on the 17th. But there was some news regarding a former Relentless Beats employee. Relentless Beats is an event organization, I guess you would say, out in Arizona. That's kind of like the main promoter out there, and a lot of the events are organized through Relentless Beats. But there was a post on Facebook that has since been deleted, but it is on Twitter that I wanted to read to you. And the subject matter, trigger warning, is about sexual assault. And a former employee, Shanta Campbell, had posted that they had dedicated 5 years of their life. And because I truly believed in a safe place, a mom, I loved you all, no judgment, a safe place. Then it turned into a family business from hell. I only speak from my experienced sexual abuse, discrimination. Thomas, the Thomas in question is Thomas Turner, who is the founder of Relentless Beats, allowed, after me knowing it happened, his brother to sexually touch me in front of Ryan Owl, and Alicia Soledad Castro, where he inserted in front of Ryan 2 fingers inside me during a company Christmas party. Ask them. Then they allowed him to demote me from my position within the company until I was pushed out. All I have ever asked is that you return the love I have given to you. Just believe me, help me. So that was recently posted. And there's been a lot of talk on Reddit and Twitter about this happening and what went down here. But obviously in question is Thomas Turner's brother, who allegedly committed the assault, and then the 2 Relentless Beats employees who allegedly witnessed the assault and did nothing about it. Before this turns into a witch hunt and even more cancel culture, I would rather read Shanta's posts herself, because she has since posted updates on her Facebook, and Relentless Beats did just release a response today. So this was the official statement from Relentless Beats on this matter. They said, this week has been a trying period for our community, and our silence to date is not without purpose. While we did not have direct involvement in the incident in question, we take it very seriously. We are working to address and ensure that the values and standards of all affiliated companies and workplaces are to a level that is reflective of Relentless Beats. No employee should ever feel as if they're unwelcomed or don't have an avenue to speak up and find a resolution. None of us want anyone to be subjected to feel as Shanta did, whether that be staff, fans, artists, or community members. We in no way support or condone sexual harassment or assault within our company or our surrounding community. We want to underscore our consistent commitment to creating an environment built on the values of trust and respect for everyone involved. Over the past several years, we have strived to build a company based on integrity and trust for our peers and community. Everyone needs to know that our doors are always open for feedback, concerns, and suggestions. After coming back from the pandemic, our company has grown, and we are committed to continuing to evolve and improve the workplace for our team. I feel like that last line is irrelevant. I don't think it matters that your company has grown. We also encourage anyone harassed at work or school to report to the authorities at your job, school, local law enforcement. Anyway, what they're going to be doing is they're committing to donating $1 per ticket sold during April, which is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. They're donating that to RAIN to promote positivity in light of an unfortunate circumstance, putting it lightly, I would say. But obviously a lot of people are really angry at this response. What I do want to read to you is Shanta's responses since. This was posted 2 hours ago. Obviously, a lot of people have come after Relentless Beats. I myself don't want to speak on something when I don't know who of the team was involved or knew about the scenario. I think the person in question here is the founder of Relentless Beats and his brother, and anyone that allowed this situation to happen to this person. So Shanta did post that this last week has been more challenging, and I appreciate all the support in facilitating a necessary conversation. Regrettably, in using social media as my platform, many untruths and threats have been made against Thomas, Relentless Beats, and their staff. This was never my intention, and I do not condone harassment in any way. In speaking with them, I have been able to share my full experience, which they were unaware of despite previous statements, and lend my voice to making positive change. I believe positive change can come from this situation, and I feel supported. Relentless Beats was my family for many years and a place I helped to create and build the harm reduction team I'm so proud of. In being able to speak with the Relentless Beats team, it is clear that they also care, and not just me, but our community, about me, but our community as a whole. They've committed to providing additional support to the Ranger team, which is the Relentless Rangers that they have, that will highlight awareness for Sexual Assault Awareness Month by donating proceeds from ticket sales in the month of April, as well as making a donation to the Survivor Shield Foundation. These are the steps I would like any of us to take in supporting each other and the community we love so much. I look forward to healing, and will be handling this privately going forward. I'm confident that positivity can overcome. Relentless Beats and I share the common goal of keeping our community strong and safe. So I just wanted to read that because that was very recent, and obviously a lot of like the shitstorm that is happening on Twitter hasn't seen her response, but it sounds like she's spoken to the staff. She feels heard, and she feels like there's a resolution that's coming. And to me, that's all that matters, is that she finds healing and that she's getting the support and help that she needs. So I just want to make that known because this is like a very sensitive topic for her and for anyone involved in this. So before you attack people online, just remember that there's human beings on the other side. But one thing I will say, just to wrap this all up, is that I'm proud of her for speaking up and saying something, because I can't even imagine how difficult that was, especially if she loved the organization, like she said, built a harm reduction team and really enjoyed what they had grown together, to then have to speak out about it against them and the founder because of something that horrific that happened to her was probably a really scary thing for her to do. So it's a bigger systemic issue because this is not new. Women don't feel comfortable in the workplace, and there have been so many different examples and times of men in positions in the music industry and the festival industry using their influence to take advantage of others. Artists are included in this, and it's not okay. Women should feel safe. And the tricky thing is, a lot of the situations that we find ourselves in at festivals that are involved with nightlife, you know, sometimes substances are involved. You just never know. And those environments can, you know, lead to uncomfortable scenarios and situations, and we should feel safe. You should make your coworkers feel safe, your employees feel safe, and they should never be in a situation like that where they feel like they don't have any help, and that nobody else will speak up for them as well. So having other people who will advocate for you and speak up for you when something happens to you that is wrong is also important. So we need to be allies together and help each other and support each other's voices so that they're heard and that there are actual changes made. And we need to make sure that workplace environments, whether they're in an office or at a festival ground or in a green room at a show, are safe. So that's where I'll leave that there. I hope that she finds healing and resolution, and that, and that's what she gets, because it should be about her finding that. So that is everything this week, you guys. Sorry for that tangent on the end there. I just think that was a really important thing to say. But I very much appreciate you being here. I really, really hope you enjoyed this episode. I found this conversation with Michael so interesting and really enjoyed learning more about Hulaween. Lastly, you guys know where to connect with us at Rave Culture Cast on all platforms. We have a Facebook group and Discord server that is incredible. So come chat with us on the daily, discuss episodes, all that good stuff. Rate, review, subscribe. You know the drill with that. And of course, all of our important links will be linked down below if you want to connect with us or browse any of the links I mentioned today. So thank you all so much for listening. I hope you have an incredible Wednesday, and I will see you next week. Bye, guys.